Welcome to Momentum for Change, Voices of the Missouri Movement. This is a monthly podcast produced by your coalition, and I am your host, Nora Mosby, a member services specialist at the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation coming to you directly from Voices of the Missouri Movement. Some episodes of Momentum for Change have conversations that include content and descriptions of domestic and sexual violence, which may be alarming or activating for some listeners. Please take care and visit the MOCADSV website or call our office to connect with supportive services. This is your host, Nora Mosby, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of season 5 of Momentum for Change. We have a great episode for you today. February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and it's a time when we as a movement celebrate the steps that young people are taking to educate and support each other around relationship safety. It's also a time when we celebrate the adults who are committed to violence prevention and working with young people regularly throughout the community and in schools in particular to ensure that teens and adolescents have the services and information they need to feel respected and safe. Joining me today are Katie Hobeck, the violence prevention educator from the Safe House of Southeast Missouri in Cape Girardeau, and Miss Janine Mayberry, counselor from Key Middle School in Scott County. Katie and Mrs. Mayberry, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
I'd love to start off with just some introductions to get to know you both a little bit more. Janine, can you tell us how you became an educator and where your interest in education came from?
Absolutely. I graduated with my master's degree in counseling, psychological counseling, but I was always drawn towards the school setting. And so after much education, I switched and got some more education and got certified to be a school counselor. And that was 25 years ago. And so I've spent the last 22 years of counseling at Kelly Middle School with 6th through 8th graders.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations on 25 years. That is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. It's evolved in the last 25 years, but yeah, I love my middle school kids. I do. I wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
So as a school counselor, my focus is social emotional development, academic achievement, and career exploration. So those are the 3 pillars that counselors work with schools. And if you don't mind, I have to say, this is also National School Counselor Week. And so I would love to shout out to all of the Southeast Missouri School Counselor Association members. Shout out to them for doing a wonderful job with all their kids. So I appreciate you. Let me throw that in there.
Many thanks to all you counselors out there. You all do incredible work, and it's so important. It makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
So happy we get to recognize National School Counselors Week with you too,
Yeah.
Janine. That's great.
Thanks.
I'd like to turn it over to you, Katie. How did you get involved in the Safe House, and what do you do there?
So I started my social work journey doing my internship. And so with my undergrad VSW, we had to do an internship, and I did mine at the Safe House. So after graduation, I decided, try some things, and I just gravitated right back to the Safe House. So I started out doing some crisis advocate work and then some case management over at our shelter. And then, the whole time I did my internship and other positions here, I had my eye on the education position. So when it opened up, I really went for it. And so I've had this position now for about 3 years, and I love it. So I initially started going to school to be an educator and kind of realized that I wanted to be able to do more than I was going to be able to do in the classroom. And so this kind of gives me best of both worlds. I get to do my teaching stuff, but I also get to do the social worky, advocacy part of it too.
That's so interesting. So it kind of sounds like you almost had a calling to the anti-violence movement. Like it's going to be your life's work. It just kind of, that's how the cards were meant to be, and that's how they played out. Janine, another issue that is kind of very closely related to our work in the domestic and sexual violence advocacy field is working with people who are experiencing homelessness. And you are also the homeless liaison for your school district. Can you tell us about what you do in that role?
Sure. So McKinney-Vento is a federal law that basically removes barriers for families that are homeless to be able to enroll in school. A lot of times our families If they have a house fire and all of their documents are destroyed, they may have to move to another town, start school. There is no barrier to starting school. By the same token, if you have a family that is leaving a domestic violence situation, they may not have their paperwork. The McKinney-Vento law says you can start school and we'll get the paperwork later. So with that, some helpfulness is that those kids get free lunch at school. Once you're identified as homeless status, you get free lunch. Our seniors get help with filling out the FAFSA if they're independent, help with post-secondary education, that process. And then we have funds set aside for basic hygiene needs, school supplies, things like that. So it's just another resource that schools can offer.
That's so great. And that's very meaningful work. So thank you for your role as the homeless liaison. We have listeners of the podcast who are located all throughout the state of Missouri, maybe even beyond, who might not be familiar with the communities that you two work in. How would you describe your communities? Can you give us a little background of the communities that you're working in, just so we have an idea going forward of where you're coming from a little bit?
Well, as
Katie,
far
would you like to go first?
I was going to say,
Or
Katie
Janine,
can
go
go
first.
first because she has more a widespread. She covers a bigger
Re-
district area.
Really, it's rural. I mean, across the different counties that I go to, it's a lot of small towns. I would say Cape Girardeau, which is where our home base is, where our agency is located, is the biggest population or populated area that we serve. And I mean, I think we're what, 40 in the 40,000. So, I mean, we're a larger town, but we're not big by any means. So if that's the biggest, we're going smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's pretty rural. You've got some schools that, you know, Jackson, for instance, they've got classes up to 400, but then the schools that I go to, I see classes of 15, 25, 36.
Wow.
So rural.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Anything you would add to that, Janine?
No, I was going to say, my school district covers a lot of square miles, but it's very much a
Mhm.
small town feel. Like our school district is very much a small town feel, and it's very heavily like in farming. It's just hardworking folks.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm sure that as we talk today in our conversation about teen dating violence prevention and awareness, some of these dynamics about working in rural communities will come out because I know it certainly does inform some of the work that you do in schools. So I look forward to hearing about that. As we said earlier, February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and you both have quite a passion for working with young people. You've mentioned it already, um, but I would love to just hear more about your experience in working with young people and where your kind of passion for this work comes from. What would you say about your just drive to come get out of bed every day and go and work with adolescents?
Katie, do you want to take this one?
Sure, sure. Um, for me, I just have always had a passion for students, kids, young people. Like I mentioned earlier, I initially went to school to be a teacher. My entire life, I grew up thinking I was going to be a teacher. Um, and so it's kind of just in my blood that that was the demographic that I was drawn towards. And so I just, it's all about pouring into them. And so it's very you get a lot of satisfaction knowing that you can be on the ground with these people and talking to them because, some of them don't get that kind of conversation at home. Some of them don't ever have those types of interactions that show them that they matter. So it's gratifying in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we're all adults here in this conversation, but we've all experienced adolescent and we've gone through those teen years. And so I think we do have so much insight to share with young people as they're kind of navigating the world and trying to figure out their next steps. And so I just think that's really helpful. And young people, they really do inspire so much hope and creativity. And yeah, I think it's really exciting work. And hats off to you all for doing it so regularly. So, Janine, you mentioned that when you started this work 25 years ago, that things were in the world were a little different. So, can you talk about things that you've noticed about kind of what young people are dealing with today? And what are some of those emerging issues that they're dealing with?
I really think, and I feel like it gets said a lot, but there's a lot of truth to it. I really think technology has shaped the way our kids interact with each other and just the amount of stuff they have to deal with. So, years ago when I first started, if a kid had a bad day at school, maybe with friendships, they could go home and get away from it. And they didn't have to deal with that until they came to school the next day. And tempers had a chance to calm down, emotions had a chance to level out, and the next day may be better, right? Where I'm at, because the kids cannot have cell phones during the school day. That's a law in Missouri. So as soon as school is over, all those kids have their phones immediately and their noses in their phones. And they are interacting with their friend groups immediately after school. It goes all through the evening, sometimes late into late at night, and before they get on the school bus. It is nonstop. And I'm not saying we have people bullying, I'm not saying that. It's just the constant social drama that is very typical for middle school, but they don't get a break. And that
Mhm.
constant group chats, adding people to the group chat, it just explodes and they don't get a break from what is traditionally a typical middle school drama. And I think that can be very unhealthy at times.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting with the use of social media that you can't just go home and get away from it,
Mhm,
also follows you home. It's almost like the reverse of what it used to be, because
mhm.
social media is at home, but not at school. That's such an interesting point. I'm glad you brought it up. Is there anything else you would add to that, Katie?
I second all of that, but I
Yeah.
feel like the severity of it just comes from the lack of social skills, but also it turns into the desensitization to some things and almost the dehumanization of the other people. Like
Mhm,
it's not that big of a deal because they're not seeing the reaction and the fallout face to face of how this person is being treated. It doesn't hit home as hard as it would if you saw how someone reacted to what you said or did to them. So I feel like that's a big one, and really in the dating abuse scope of it, oh, you see so many behaviors now that are controlling behaviors that the kids,
mhm,
when I talk to them in the schools, they're like, "Oh, it's no big deal." I'm like, "Well, hold on a second. Yeah, no, that's not normal, right?" Like checking somebody's location, tracking
yeah,
somebody, wanting to go through your significant other's phone all the time and see,
mhm,
make sure they're not lying to you. Um, all of those types of things, these kids, because they have phones. I
yes,
mean, I've had kids who tell me they get a phone when they're 5 or 6, and it's like, "Okay." But because they're getting them so young, they're thinking that this kind of stuff is normal. They're not seeing relationships that don't revolve around technology, like you said, because they're on it from the time they wake up to the time they go to school, come home, and go to bed. So that's the biggest part is them not understanding the gravity of what that controlling behavior really is and thinking that it's normalized or that it's
Yeah.
normal because it's been normalized.
Right. Right. And so this kind of emergence of technology, it's so universal. Everybody has it, everybody uses it, including adolescents, and it impacts many, many areas of life, including relationships, and it impacts relationship violence in many, many ways, which we'll get into in our conversation today. But before we do, I'd like to just start off with a common understanding of what are we talking about when we talk about teen dating violence? What does that look like with the young people you all work with?
I'll let you answer first if you want to.
sure. So the teen dating violence, being the school counselor, it is very much when if something's going on between couples, they're very open to coming and talking to me about it, and so I have the opportunity to work one on one with kids, and talk about what is a healthy relationship, what is not. So that I'm very fortunate to have that one on one time with kids that are going through maybe not an abusive relationship, but the start of those red flags that we need kids to pay attention to.
And I can just imagine if young these young students are able to have conversations with you about it at such a young age, that really informs the trajectory of the rest of their lives that they had this education at such a young age when their norms and expectations around roles and relationships are really forming.
Right.
So I wish every school had a Mrs. Mayberry at it.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
I'd like to just also kind of dive into how common teen dating violence is. Katie, do you have any stats you could share about the prevalence of teen dating violence and what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so I have been trying to work on getting some local stats for our area. I haven't been able to get those numbers yet, but I do know, I work with 20 schools in our surrounding area, and I would say, 90% of those schools I've had whoever I work with, whether that's a teacher, a principal, a counselor, tell me about some of the things that their students are experiencing. So it is happening, right? It's happening more often than people might think. But as far as kind of some generalized numbers may go, I've gotten some of these from the CDC. So, it says that 1 in 12 high school, students, teenagers have experienced some kind of physical dating violence. 1 in 10 teenagers have experienced some kind of sexual dating violence. And it goes in to say that it's more prevalent in females and girls. So, in 1 in 5 girls have experienced, and then 1 in 10 boys, teenage boys, might have experienced some type of dating violence. But then it goes in to say that 1 in 3 teenagers have experienced some kind of dating abuse, whether that is, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, mental, emotional, verbal, technological. That's the new thing. And that's just the ones that are being reported. These are just the numbers that are actually being reported, the people who are, self-reporting what's going on or things like that. So it could be more, right? We don't know. But in a lot of people, the other thing that I always think of that affects the numbers is some people still don't consider that there are other types of abuse other than physical abuse. And there's a long ways to go with getting people to understand that physical, mental, emotional, financial, technological abuse, all of that can be really detrimental, really dangerous. So I keep that in mind when I'm thinking about the numbers, that it could be more.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And it sounds like from these numbers that you're reporting, what you're saying is that teen dating violence is common. And
Mhm.
if you're working with students, you're going to be working with students who have experienced this type of abuse or maybe are in an abusive relationship. And so there's so much to be gained as educators to being that trusted person that teens can come to and have these open conversations. Janine, is there anything you would say about how you've established that relationship with students? What are some kind of helpful things that build that trust?
Well, I mean, as a school counselor, most folks that get into school counseling typically like kids. So I like kids and they know that I like kids. I'm kind of goofy. I don't take myself too seriously in front of them. And that kind of helps break down that barrier of, she's an adult. I'm very much you can tell me anything kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I let kids know that you can tell me anything. And then understanding explaining confidentiality to them, that they can tell me anything unless someone's getting hurt. Then I'm not going to stay quiet. So, and then just being present, it helps that I've been there so long. I have students in my 6th grade class that I had their parents when they were in middle
Oh my
school.
goodness. That's great.
So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, I remember your mom. I remember your dad.
I love that.
So, I mean,
That's
I've
so
been
wonderful.
around. Yeah, they know me.
Yes, I love that you brought up so many great issues there. And I'm just so glad that you're doing what you do there in Scott County. So I'd like to just kind of move over a little bit, and we've talked about some of the concerns and some of the risks with the current generation of adolescents that you're working with. Is there anything in particular that inspires you about this generation?
Well, I'm lucky enough that and maybe this is all over, like, I've only been at Kelly. What I noticed 22 years ago and is still the same today is our kids in our particular district are so welcoming to new people. We get new kids that show up and immediately everyone's like, "What class do they have? What class do they have?" When I'll show them around. Do you want me to show them where to go? And they're so easy to just bring them into their friend group. And then they're inclusive of everybody. If I've got folks that maybe are a little shy, I can go up to this group and say, "Hey, can they sit with you at lunch?" "Oh, absolutely. Come on over." And they're just so open and they care about each other. So many times I will have kids come and say, "So and so needs to talk to you." I'll be like, "Okay." Or they'll bring them. "Here's so and so. She needs to talk to you." And they look out for each other. And I think that's wonderful.
That is truly inspiring, and I can see how, like, if you're having a bad day or it seems like everything's just not going right, you can come and be around these awesome kids who are just
Oh, yeah.
being so welcoming to each other and inclusive, like, it almost restores your faith in humanity.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything you would add to that, Katie?
No, all all the
Yeah.
same things, I really enjoy because a lot of times you see kids have to grow up quicker and because of, all the mainstream things, they're a lot more grown than they used to be. But the kids that I get to go and see, they've got a good sense of humor. They, they're still kids.
Yeah.
They still as grown up as they like to seem, they're still kids. They still like candy when I hand out some candy.
Mhm.
But no, our area has some really good students who are open, who ask questions, who want to have the information. So,
Yeah, there's just so much going on with that age group developmentally,
Mhm.
socially.
yes.
And then you throw in technology, there's just so much going on. But I love that you can connect and build relationships. And I heard you both use your secret power, humor, and how important humor is in building relationships with people. And I'm just so happy that you spoke to that. Katie, also, I totally know what you mean about building relationships with candy. How many relationships are forged throughout our lifetimes because of candy? Thank goodness for chocolate, right?
I'm telling you,
Yep.
my secret weapon is candy and using their lingo because nothing
Yeah.
breaks the ice more than being super cringy and then being like, "Oh, I can't believe she just said that." And then they want to listen to you. And then you have good conversations. So if you speak their language, they're way more willing to sit there and pay attention to you. So,
Oh my gosh, that is such a great tip. I love that. That's great. So, one thing that I'm really excited to talk to you about, Janine, is your relationship with the Safe House.
Yeah.
So, many years ago, you invited the Safe House to come and talk to the students you were working with around relationship safety, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the origin of that relationships and what inspired you to get in touch with the Safe House, where that began?
You know, honestly, I'm not sure if I reached out to them or if they reached out to me, quite honestly. It was so long ago. I mean, the community educator with Safe House, I've had several over the years. It's been well over 10 years. So I'll be honest, not real sure how it started, but I- I would not trade it. And I'm retiring at the end of this year, and I will urge the new counselor to keep this relationship going because it's important. So yeah, I don't remember exactly how it got started, but we met years ago. I know we've kind of met over the years, and we might talk about this later, but I think connecting with advocacy programs, it's important one to have admin, principals, superintendents that are open to having someone from the outside come in. It's important that we talk to that person and talk about what is going to be covered. Let me see the curriculum beforehand. Let me take something out that I think is maybe a little too much. And then to have someone as wonderful as Katie coming, I mean, yeah, I can't
I
pass that up.
I know. I agree. I agree. Katie, you are wonderful and you do great work. So, can you all talk about just the general benefits for educators to partner with local domestic and sexual violence advocacy organizations? Any thoughts around that? What are the benefits there?
Oh, I do have the benefits. So, like Katie said, she talks their language, right? So I'm older.
Yeah.
Okay. And they see me every day. And I think there's a huge benefit for someone from the outside coming in. Because again, my kids are like,
Hmm.
ooh, someone new, and they are all about it. Someone from the outside coming in, she can say the same thing I say, but they're going to listen to her because she's new. And they're going to listen to her because
Interesting.
she speaks their language and she's interesting and funny, and I could say the same thing, but it's not gonna be the same as if she said it. Sometimes you need outside people
Yep,
to
I
come in.
love that. It makes so much sense, and
Mhm.
especially at your school where the kids are so welcoming, I'm sure they see Katie and they're like, "Candy, yes, please." Ah, those are such great points. Thanks for
Yeah.
speaking to that. Katie, I'd also like to talk about some of the content that you are going over with students. So, Janine, you mentioned that Katie provides the
Mhm.
curriculum, some of the content beforehand, so there's like not really any surprises.
You bet.
Katie, yeah, I'd really like to hear about kind of what your approach is when you're thinking about being of age appropriate, because I know middle school is pretty young, and so you
Mhm.
have to be really aware of what's appropriate for that age.
So, no matter what school I'm going to, I always start out meeting. If it's a school that I've never gone to before, I'm calling them, hey, can I come meet with you? Can I just come talk to you and your administration and whoever you want to be involved and just tell you about my program? So, the program that the Safe House uses is the Safe Dates program. It was developed by Vanji and Foshi. I may be butchering that, but it's through the CDC. And so it is a great curriculum that has really good information. I would never be able to go through all of it in one setting with students, but it just really is broad enough to touch on a lot of things, but still specific enough to give you some of the goodies that you need to know about those things. So when I'm trying to decide what information to share with what students, I really ask the school, hey, what are your students dealing with? What are things that they're experiencing? Is there anything, here's what I have. Here are all my handouts. Here's all my talking points. These are the things that I really talk about. Is there anything that you're not comfortable with? Is there anything that you would like me to change? Is there anything you would like me to add? I really try to kind of form it to whatever the school wants. That way, I'm at least there, right? I have some schools who are like, no, say it all. I want it all, everything. The kids need it. I have other schools who are like, hey, could you leave this part and this part out? And I'm okay with that because no matter what, they're getting good information. And as far as age appropriateness goes, you would like to think that sixth, seventh, eighth graders don't know about things. That's just not the truth anymore. Sixth, seventh, eighth graders, these middle schoolers, they are dealing with things that we never thought they would. And so I do handle them with, quote unquote kid gloves, but I try to bring those topics in a way that they're going to say, "Oh, wait, I do know what she's talking about," and not be like scared of the conversation. And I would also never want to offend parents. So again, I always err on the side of caution, and I do make sure that I am speaking and talking about things that I feel are school appropriate. I have not had any issues thus far because again, I am a rule follower, and so I always try to double check beforehand. What does your school want, and how can I make sure I do that?
I'm a rule follower too, I get it. I love that you have all this transparency that you approach education with, that you really want the school district to be fully informed
Mhm,
of kind of what your agenda is.
mhm.
I can certainly see how that's really helpful. It's almost like your approach is school district defined. You want to meet their needs and make sure that they are very aware of kind of what your goal and mission is in coming and meeting with their students. So that makes a lot of sense. Are
Mhm.
there any messages in particular that you find are resonating with young people?
I think in, like, the younger kids, recognizing that relationships aren't just boyfriend and girlfriend,
Mhm.
your friendships, the interactions that you have with all of the people matter, and navigating those. Because with my younger kids, that's what we focus on, is just having healthy relationships, healthy communication habits, being able to talk about our feelings. With the younger kids, I feel like that is kinda what resonates is that, "Oh, I should my friends should be treating me well too. It's not just, boyfriends and girlfriends." And with the older kids, I really think it's the technology stuff
Mhm.
because, we talk about those controlling behaviors. We talk about sexting. We talk about all of the stuff that most of the time people are too scared to talk about with them. And it's just like, hey, I just want you to have good information so that you can protect yourself. That's all this is. So,
That makes so much sense. And I think when you set that foundation of what a healthy relationship is between friends, then when they start dating,
Mhm.
that follows them into those dating
Yeah.
relationships and really prepares them for those dating relationships in healthy ways. So, I think prevention education in schools is something that many domestic and sexual violence advocates kind of continue to look for information and resources on. So, as you reflect on your own work, Katie, do you have any tips or advice for other advocates who are also doing education in schools? Like what works well?
As far as, like, getting into the schools or
Yeah, or just anything that comes to mind. Getting into the schools, maintaining those relationships. You certainly are doing it well. So,
thank you. Um, my biggest success is just being transparent, like we just talked about, just, "Hey, give me a chance. Let me come show you what I'm about. Let me show you what the program looks like. Let me tell you exactly how I would do it." And I feel like that builds trust once they kind of understand that I'm not controversial, I'm not inappropriate, anything like that. And then once they kind of have the information and they're talking amongst themselves, like, "Oh, do we think this will be a fit?" I always throw in there, I'm like, "Hey, if there's anything you want me to change, let me know. If there's anything you want me to add that your kids are going through that you want us to talk about, I'll add that." As I am currently trying to grow and expand my program to where I have something that is for every single grade level so that the kids can hear something different every year. So I'm also, always constantly talking to the educators that I work with saying, "Hey, what are some topics you guys want to talk about? What are some things your students are going through? What other conversations can we be having that you think would be beneficial?" I think just the constant communication and the mutual respect, that's my biggest success, and just me showing up. How can I be involved? Just constant communication. I send a lot of emails.
communication is key. And it does take a lot of time and energy and
Mhm.
work. Like, so I'm hearing you say that's kind of a big part of your work is preparing in addition to the work you're actually doing in schools.
Yeah. And I will add, like with schools, things are unpredictable. And so, for those advocates out there, please be flexible when you're working with schools. For example, it's a snow day, things don't go always according to plan. We have unexpected pep assemblies, we have unexpected things that happen. And so, being flexible with schools because it's not a typical business, right? And then showing
Right.
up. I mean, Katie is extremely flexible in me sharing this is what's going on in our school. Like, how can we fit all this in and scheduling? But then once we have it scheduled, I don't worry that she's not going to show. I know she's going to be there. And so I think that's really important. You know, if I have you planned, by golly, you better show up because I got an hour with these kids. What am I going to do if you don't show up? So I just think that flexibility is important. And also that you got to be there because I'm expecting you.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense to me. Those are such helpful tips, you all. Thank you for sharing them.
I will say kinda to go off of that from my standpoint is the fact that this is my position. Like, this is my sole job within the organization is to do prevention and education. That makes it easy for me to be reliable and to show up and to be flexible because my job solely revolves around your guys' schedule. So I think that that is important for agencies to think about is that this is my full job. It's not, part of my job. This is what I do. So I think that having a position like that in an agency really helps with those relationships.
I
I
am
would agree.
so on board with that, Katie. And do you find that just focusing on education, that there's plenty to do?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. My
Yes.
summer I will say my summer can get a little boring because I miss all of the students and I miss all of my trips to all the different schools. That gives me, summer break and winter break gives me some really good time to, A, take a breather,
Right.
but then also do some more research, make some more presentations, come up with some more materials. So, yeah.
Right. Right. I am wondering, as we're talking about the violence prevention work that you do, Katie, Janine, have you gotten any feedback from students, teachers, parents about the violence prevention work? Have you heard anything um, from the audience that you serve about that?
Yeah, well, from the kids themselves. So I've started this from day one. If I have a speaker that comes and talks to my kids, they're writing a thank you note. That's just how I work. And so, so I have them write thank you notes to Katie. And of course, I always look at them first because I want to make sure everything's appropriate. But I love the thank you notes. Some kids are very straightforward. Thank you. And I'm okay with that. Some kids really put effort into saying what they've learned or that now they understand things differently or they how much they appreciated her coming. And so just by those thank you notes and the amount of information that they share with her, it's meaningful. So yes, they've come up with some cute thank you notes over the years.
I have. I had one student who quite literally made me a house out like a D house out of construction paper, and you had to open the door to read what was inside.
That is so cool. I
They're
love
so
that.
cool.
That is awesome. Wow. I love the idea of thank you notes. That's such a great idea. And I love that your students get on board with it and get so
Mhm.
creative with it.
Yep. Yeah, and it gives me an opportunity to see what they've learned and to see, like there are
Mhm.
kids that will, share that they know someone in a relation in an abusive relationship, and they're glad they know that there's resources out there, or now they understand a lot of it is she does an activity stay or go, and I think that's probably the biggest activity that makes an impact because it explains why people might stay in a relationship and why they would go and maybe why they would go back to that relationship. And that's a real activity that hits home for a lot of kids.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good one. So, as we're talking about some of these dynamics of teen dating violence, I do want to recognize that, especially Katie and myself, but Janine, you as well, these are kind of normal issues to us. Like we talk about violence. Clearly, Janine, you create an open relationship with your students where they feel comfortable coming and talking to you about these kinds of things. However, in the general world and larger community, domestic and sexual violence are often seen as very controversial issues, especially when it comes to young people. So, Janine, do you have any thoughts for maybe other educators who are reluctant to partner with domestic and sexual violence advocacy programs who maybe see the issue as too controversial or doesn't happen here? How would you respond to that?
Well, I think I would respectfully say that we can't put our head in the sand. Our role as counselors is to provide for our kids, and maybe they don't have an agency close by, then they need to do the work themselves to educate their kids on healthy relationships. So, yeah, we just have to. However it gets done, it gets done. But we have to. We have to talk about and we have to talk about the issues. They're not comfortable. No one wants to talk about sexual violence. No one wants to talk about physical violence, but no one wants to talk about suicide either. And we got to talk about these things. That's
Yeah,
how
and in fact, not talking about them perpetuates the harm, right? And
absolutely.
so we have to talk about them if we really care about prevention.
We got to do the hard things.
Absolutely. And so I want to just say that education is really in the spirit of violence prevention, making sure that no young people experience violence. And so, what would you say about your role in preventing violence from happening in the first place? What steps are you taking to prevent violence from happening?
My role in as a counselor, I think having
Yeah.
someone like Katie come in, and
Hmm.
share red flags, share healthy communication. She comes in 5 days in a row and talks about 5 different topics, and, that is more impactful than just a one-time shot, which is
Yes.
good, it's fine, but, she's coming 5 days, and so over those 5 days, they develop a relationship with her, and so, yeah, that's the key is just talking about it and showing
Yep.
resources
I
and sharing those resources. She explains all the different ways you can contact the safe house, so that's important.
But I agree. Violence prevention is not a one and done
No.
awareness event. It's that ongoing message that's
Mhm.
consistent and happening on a regular basis. Anything you want to say about prevention in particular, Katie?
I just think, any domestic or sexual violence agency, that has to be part of it. We can't just provide a shelter. We can't just provide the support services. We can't just provide things like that. We've also got to look at the prevention aspect, because our mission statement at the Safe House is we want to provide we want to have a community that's free of violence, that people can be free of violence. Yes, we're doing the back end of it, where we have the support services, where we have a shelter and that meet the needs of people who are experiencing it. But we also want to do the footwork to stop it from happening in the first place. Will we ever be 100%? I hope so, right? But I think that being in the schools and talking to these kids when they're impressionable, that's really important, because they may never experience this, and I really hope that they don't. But they may get into a high school relationship, a college relationship, and they might start recognizing some of those red flags that we talk about. And had we not had that conversation, they may just never know that it's wrong. But maybe since we did have the conversation, maybe they'll address it with that person or in that relationship or get the help that they need. So I really think that the prevention is a really important aspect that sometimes gets overlooked. You just got to cover all your bases and hope that, one day it's all going to just come together and we're going to live in a world that everybody's nice to each other.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get so busy putting out fires that we forget to look at like how the fire started in the first place, right?
Mhm.
But you're absolutely right. Like the overwhelming majority of domestic and sexual violence advocacy programs have violence prevention stated in their mission statement. It's included. And so it really is an integral part of our advocacy. Janine, were you going to say something else?
No, I was just laughing.
Okay. So, Katie, you did mention the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Safe Dates curriculum, but I wanted to just ask, do you all have any other favorite programs or resources or educational materials that you wanted to mention in our conversation together today?
For me, whenever I'm doing my research, I try to find reputable places. So that's kind of, besides the CDC, another big one that I love is loveisrespect.org. They have a really big initiative for teen dating violence. They are the ones who kind of really push out the Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month initiative. They have a good one. We just had a meeting earlier about what we're doing this month, and I had found some information um, from I think it was the American Bar Association. So not even um, a domestic violence agency or anything like that, but I really liked this, put out a um, a little guide for schools to be having these conversations with their students. And I thought that that was really cool. And I was actually going to send it to my schools later, but it talks about here it is. So it's the teacher's guide. So interesting, fun, and effective classroom activities to influence teen dating violence awareness and prevention. And it is a whole packet for every single subject that you're going to have in a school, that these teachers could be doing an activity about teen dating violence and having that conversation. So, there's the web page design class, math class, government, history, art, drama, facts class, health science. I mean, it's all of the classes. So I was going to send that out and just like, hey, it's February. Let's have these conversations. But it's just looking for the stuff really helps. And with our curriculum that we use through the CDC, it actually gives us parent packets. So I have resources for parents. If they ever want them, I try to make them readily available, and just say, hey, like, if you don't know how to have this conversation with your kids, I got your back. Ask me. I can give you all this information. It has little prompts to have the conversation. It has topics to talk about with your student. So yeah, that's also a really good resource that we have.
That is fantastic. I think sometimes just finding the words can be so difficult for these
Hmm.
conversations. So to have that, and I'll go ahead and do my best to link those resources in our show notes as well. So, Katie, is the Safe House going to be doing anything for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month this year? And if so, we'd love to hear about it.
Yes. So we are actually going to um, go to our local high school and we do a lot with them. So what we're going to do is 2 days this month, we're going to go during all of the lunch periods and have a booth for kids to come up that they can, grab some candy, conversation starter, and then we can kind of talk about teen dating violence. And they've already seen me this year, so they'll know who I am. They know what I talk about. So we'll talk to them, but we're going to do a fun little banner activity where we hang up a banner and it's going to have like a big flower in the middle and it's going to say, they love me not. And we're going to do red flag, green flag. So we're going to let them take a sticky note and put like red flags and green flags so that we can have little flowers all over the banner so that, as kids are walking by, they can kind of just look at it and be like, oh, I didn't realize that was a red flag. My boyfriend or my girlfriend does that all the time.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that this year with them. We're also going to just really push out some good information on our social medias, just make it very available to our community, just saying, hey, this month, try to have a conversation with your kids. These are the things they might be experiencing. These are the things you could talk to them about. Here are some resources. You can always stop by our outreach office for resources. The kids love the TikTok, so we're going to try and make some fun TikToks and posts that are going to draw in the younger crowd because, again, a lot of the people we see interacting with our social media are older people. So I would really love for the teens and the young adults to get involved with the stuff that we're putting out. So a lot of stuff like that.
Oh, that sounds so great. I'll keep an eye out for your social media posts. And
It's
that
going to be
banner
fun.
sounds awesome. Like, I just love that the banner is coming from teens' own experiences and like what they identify as something that's a red flag or green flag. That's just very, I think, a great approach to take with that. So, as we're wrapping up our episode today, I did just want to ask you all, as you're reflecting on the work that you have done with young people, your experiences in schools, talking specifically about our relationship safety, is there any advice that comes to mind that you would give to your younger self, knowing what you know now?
Oh, I struggled with this
Don't give in to
question.
peer pressure.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know it's a tough one.
Peer pressure is a big deal.
Oh, sorry, Katie. What? Yeah.
I would say hold your boundaries. If people aren't respecting your boundaries, that doesn't mean that you have to give in. If people aren't respecting that you're not comfortable with something or that you're saying no to something, then they may not be your friend. You don't have to
Mhm.
change who you are. You don't have to make yourself uncomfortable just to make somebody else happy. That's not love, right? If that's a boyfriend or a girlfriend asking you to do those things. And it's not respect. It's not a good relationship if your friends are the ones who are doing that. I feel like that would resonate the most with me is just you're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to be yourself. And if those people don't like that about you, then maybe that's not your crowd.
Yeah. I agree with
Truly.
that one a lot. I agree with that one a
I
lot. I
know.
think if we could help kids to have that sense of self and to be able to say no without any issues,
Hmm.
to ignore the noise, of what people might be saying, ignore it, and then holding true to your boundaries and that, yeah, it's okay to not be okay with something.
Hmm.
Janine and Katie, you two are just going to change the world. Thank you for sharing all of these wonderful insights. It's really just inspiring to hear about your work with young people. As we're closing out our episode today, did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to be sure to speak to? We've covered a lot of ground already.
Just if your school isn't already doing it, think about partnering with a local agency. If your agency doesn't have a program, think about starting one. Try and forge those relationships because really, those kids are going to be adults one day, and those are
Hmm.
going to be the people that we're going to be serving one day. So
Hmm.
trying to reach them when they maybe haven't already been exposed to all of it is really important. And it's really important just so that they know who you are, even if they don't ever go through it. Maybe they know someone who does, and they now know about, in our instance, then they know about the Safe House. They know about Miss Katie. They know if they have questions, they can call me, and I'm gonna tell them, hey, here's who you need to call. This is what you need to do. Just really, those relationships are more important than we realize.
Hmm.
And then from the school standpoint, I really encourage schools to at least sit down and meet with maybe possible people that could come into the school. There are some districts that are very closed and very protective, and I respect that. But I think there's some value in, just coming to the table and having a dialogue and just giving maybe some outsiders a chance to come into your building. So give them a chance.
And if there's any educators out there who don't know who their local advocacy programs are, give us a call at the coalition or visit our website and you can connect with your local advocacy program. Well, Janine and Katie, I think about the 10 years that the Safe House of Southeast Missouri has been presenting educational information at Key Middle School. And I think about the hundreds of students whose lives have been impacted. It's really inspiring to think about the fact that maybe many relationships and abuse has been prevented because of the work that you've done in your partnership together. So thank you so much for that, Janine. Congratulations on your retirement after this year.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on 25 years of
Yep.
wonderful work as the middle school counselor. And I just want to thank listeners for tuning in. This has been a great discussion. I've learned so much. And please tune in next month for a new episode of Momentum for Change. Thank you for joining us. This has been a recorded conversation now available in both video and podcast formats. A video recording of this episode is available on the MOCADSV YouTube channel under the Momentum for Change playlist. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel in order to receive new episodes in your YouTube feed. You can also find all of our Momentum for Change episodes available to stream on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts. Momentum for Change is a podcast produced by MOCADSV with post-production support provided by Tim Stillings and promotion by Adrian Maddox. Again, I am your host, Nora Mosby, and we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you next month.